You all good, Raj?
Yep, it's just loading now. 1 second. Yeah. Okay, confirm we're live. We can begin the meeting.
Thanks very much. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to a bit of an overcast, chilly day in October. And today we're doing the Pensions Committee for the 16th of October 2020. We have not received any, or I've not been notified of any apologies for non-attendance. Raj, has anybody else?
Yeah, I've received apologies this morning from Damien.
Oh, right, okay, then from Damien, so we can note that then. Anybody else, or is that we're all good to go? We've got Kevin. Sorry, I thought I heard something then. Sorry. So we're all done on that then. So we registered for the non-attendance. Item 2, I have to inform the members of the committee that we have 2 members of our pension fund who have required and notified that they would like to speak. They're received from Mr. Kevin Johnson and Miss Kate Scott. And both members of the public who wish to speak on agenda item 8, which is on the business plan update. So we'll bring them in around about 10 o'clock or whenever possible. So we go to item 3, declaration of interests. Committee members are asked to know that under the Code of Conduct, they only need to declare an interest at the start of the meeting if that interest has not been recorded in the Register of Interests. And if any councillor declares such an interest, they must add it to the register within 28 days of the meeting. Committee members should be reminded of the seriousness of not declaring a disclosable pecuniary interest. If the councillor declares such an interest, they must remove him or herself for the whole of the item, irrespective of whether they are a member of the committee or not. When declaring an interest, committee members are asked to state the item number in which they have an interest, the nature of the interest, and whether the interest is a disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory interest. Does any members wish to have any declaration of interest raised or logged?
No.
No. So moving on to item 4 then, for the chairman's announcements. Again, I'd like to thank the committee members for the continued patience and cooperation, getting used to this new way. It just proves how volatile it can be when we lost the original link, and Raj has done exceptionally good work and speed in providing us all with another link so we can continue on time as normal. So thank you very much, Raj, for that one. And as always, a collaborative and inclusive approach to our meetings continue to be encouraged. Please feel free to answer any questions or raise any issues or any points that you'd like to discuss. All I ask you to do is just respect the speaker at the times and wait for them to finish before you can interject. But you don't need to come through the chair at all times. I also remind you that this meeting is being webcast live and to reflect the requirements of the regulations regarding remote meetings. And with that, we'll move on to item 5A, which is the minutes of the Pensions Committee held in public on the 24th of July 2020. And I invite the committee to approve the public minutes. If you want to, we can just all this just approve this on block rather than go to each committee member in turn, unless that's what you prefer to do. So if we can all just nod and approve or on block. Is there anybody that doesn't or wish to speak on those minutes? No. Thank you very much. So we approve those minutes. Item 5B, minutes of the Pension Committee meeting held in private on the 24th of July 2020. I invite the committee again to approve these private minutes. They're on the separate pack, so they're on the pink papers. And if I can ask members, if you wish to say or comment on these papers or on these minutes, we will have to actually log off and go into private condition and private session if that's need be. So if not, if everyone would like to approve the private minutes. Any again? So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I can hear anything. I've not. Raj, can you hear me? Okay, because it seems to me that my volume's gone. I can't hear anybody coming back.
Yeah, I can hear you, Chair. I think most of the members are on mute currently.
Oh, right. Okay then. All right. Sorry.
Yeah, it's fine.
I'm speaking and I'm not hearing anybody saying agreed to the minutes. Okay, so that's okay. So item 6, the action log from the Pensions Committee meeting held on the 24th of July 2020, and I'd like to invite Joanne Walton to introduce the action log of that meeting. And again, members, if you'd like to raise any queries or discuss as required, please feel free to do so.
Thank you. There's actually no actions on the action log, so that's that.
No questions or comments then?
No comment.
So I invite the committee just to note that there is nothing on the action log.
Noted.
Thank you very much. So item 7, the administration report. Again, I'd like to invite Jo Walton to introduce the report to us. Thank you very much.
Actually, Michelle's going to introduce this one for us.
All right, so okay, Michelle. Sorry.
Thank you. No problem. So yeah, this is the standard administration report we bring to you each meeting. There's actually not too much to mention on this report this time, but I'll just mention a couple of things. So on the main report itself, on section 5.2, just really to highlight there that most of the statements were sent out. Sorry, I've got a different version. I do apologise. 2 seconds.
Take the 5.2.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, it's because I'm trying to read off the screen. Sorry, 5.2. The annual benefit statements. Obviously, you can see there a very small amount not issued by the statutory deadline. So we're deeming this as a non-material breach. There was just a very small number that needed a bit of further investigation there. So just really a success story there that most of those were sent out by the statutory deadline. Just really to mention on section 7.1 that the unprocessed leavers, that Mark will cover this in more detail on the business plan update. So he'll provide you with a bit more of an explanation of where we are on that one. In the actual appendix to the report, nothing really to mention there. Everything's actually looking really healthy in terms of pension administration. All the KPIs are looking healthy, and the employer contributions as well looking healthy there. And on the private appendix, I've got nothing further to add on that, but if anyone obviously does have any questions, we'd need to save that to private session. But I'm happy to take any questions on any other areas of the report if you have any.
Thank you, Michelle. Open it up to members, and if you have any questions, queries, or any points of clarification that you wish to for Michelle.
Very positive report, Chairman.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's good to see that we're on top of everything, and even slight glitches to the fund breaches are actually being addressed very quickly and efficiently. So that's good.
Okay,
So
can I just ask in 5.2, can we actually have the actual number of benefit statements not issued as well, please? Just so we know what the number is, because I can't work that out.
Yeah, I think Corey, did you know what the actual number was for that?
Yeah, it was 9 statements that were not sent out.
9.
Thank you.
9. Yeah. There was 4 statements. Sorry, 13 statements in total. There was 4 with an invalid start date for the member, and 9 where we needed to check the identification of the member to make sure we were sending the right stuff out.
It wasn't just missed; it was delayed because of further investigations were required.
Absolutely,
Yes.
Chairman.
Yeah. I know we still missed the deadline, but it just proves that we're doing the right governance that we should be doing. So that's good. So if there's no more questions,
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question, please? In section 6.2, there's a table. The second item of the table says seeking reinstatement or compensation for 2 Lgps deferred benefits being transferred overseas. Could the officers just clarify what the issue is there and why is money's going overseas?
Joe, are you okay to pick up this one? One of the IDRP cases. Thank you.
Sure, sorry. Yeah, members are allowed to transfer their benefits overseas to a overseas pension scheme. We do have a lot of transfers to schemes, occupational schemes in Australia, and where places people migrate to. So it's a perfectly viable thing to do. These particular cases are where the member has transferred to an overseas pension scheme and has since lived to regret it. So it's something we're seeing as a bit of a growing trend. Sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Is it possible to for everyone to go on mute? Thank you. This particular case, the member transferred overseas has now regretted doing so, and has put in a challenge to us about whether we didn't do enough checks to make sure that that was the right thing for her to do. We must remember that as an occupational pension scheme, we are not allowed to give financial advice, but there's a growing trend of people who are seeking reinstatement from perhaps some decisions they made in the past that we weren't able to influence.
Chairman, can I ask
without wanting to, obviously you can't go into the details of the case. In summary, what you're saying is a member wanted to transfer their benefits overseas, they did so, changed their mind, and now it's the pension fund's fault for having transferred it overseas.
That's what they're claiming, yes, and that's what we are going through the process of the internal process to resolve this dispute.
Can we tell them at the time that we cannot give them advice or can't look into it in any depth? It's their decision.
Yeah.
Oh,
do we
yes,
notify them at the start, or can we do that in the future?
Oh, we always have done.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was just going to say, I think that there is a system or a process in the system that if anybody does come to the pension fund and ask to be transferred out or to do other, so we should say, material changes to their fund, is that they are given as much possible of advice as they can be, but ultimately, I think there's, I mean, Joe and Michelle, you could probably correct me on this one, but isn't there a couple of 2 or 3 different processes they have to go through to ensure that they're happy that the fund is transferred?
Oh yes, it's a very robust process. We include all sorts of information on the pension regulators scam program. So there is, and we do lots of checks towards the end. Are you sure you want to do this? We don't liaise with third parties. So if there's a financial advisor or a pension scheme involved, that's not a typical occupational pension scheme. We do make sure all our correspondence is copied to the member. So we have lots of safeguards in place, but these are historic cases, and also this is also about the growing world of pension scams. But it is always a worry when somebody wants to transfer from a perfectly reasonable defined benefit pension scheme to something else, like a money purchase scheme. So it's a growing trend across the country. It's not just us, but it's just something we're working through.
It's very when you look at it and you think when people do transfer out and move across, I mean, what comes to mind is the current advertising on the TV and places like that about be careful about your pension funds when you have the jet skier going off into the distance with your money. But also it's I'm always aware of things like this, and when it says if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. So you know, I'm pretty comfortable with the fact that our officers put that robust system in place, as you explained, Bill. We can't stop them from doing it, but we can strongly advise against it. But if they want to continue to go ahead, we have no choice. We have to let it go.
I might just strengthen to that in terms of that we're not actually allowed to give any financial advice, nor are we allowed to tell someone they should or shouldn't do it. What is in place is for anybody who's got a transfer value over £30,000, they have to get advice from an independent registered financial advisor, who may also say yes or no, it's a good idea to transfer, but it's still down to the member to decide. But what we're also seeing is that a lot of financial advisors are refusing now to give advice to people in deferred benefit schemes because of the risk to them. Or they're increasing their charges to cover the increase in their insurance costs. So it's a changing landscape. So we might see this sort of coming to an end where people can't actually get the financial advice they need for us to be able to release their benefits. There's a lot of work going on in this area, and it's constantly evolving.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, you're basically protecting all these systems going to be put into place are to protect people's funds and pensions for the future. We hear all too often about people who've lost everything because they think it's a better deal somewhere else. Does anybody have any more questions or points they'd like to raise? No. So then what we'll do, we'd like to invite the committee to note the report.
Noted.
Noted. Noted.
Thank you very much. We're moving on to item 8, I think. Want to find out where I am myself now.
Item 8, Chairman.
Item 8. So item 8, this is for Mark to introduce the report, but however, we have our 2 speakers on this one, don't we?
Yeah, we have one of the public members of the public in the waiting room currently. Should I admit her when it's the discussion portion of the agenda item, or should I admit her now?
It's up to Mark. Mark, would you like to hear the statement from, I think it's Miss Scott, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think the way I would like is for the 2 members of the public to one after the other, one ask a question, the other make a statement. As I understand it, they both relate to the responsible investment activity on our business plan. So I'm not sure if they're both to the business plan before 10 o'clock, and then invite them in and deal with that final activity.
I think that's right. If the committee are happy with that, I'm happy with doing that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So,
okay, Matt, thank you.
So if I go through agenda item 8, so I won't go through every activity, obviously, but if I just characterise it really as we've managed to keep our business as usual going, I think, very well. I should probably forewarn you, the next committee, you're likely to see a dip in some of our KPI statistics for last month, because we had a few days of outage, both the corporate system and then our Altair system itself. So there are going to be on some of our tighter KPIs, there will be a dip. But aside from that, during this pandemic, we've managed to keep our business as usual going extremely well and move forward, as you'll see from this business plan, quite a lot of the strategic activities as well. And ones where we haven't actually moving forward, it's been quite deliberate in the sense that we've wanted to concentrate on certain areas first. But if I just go through it and touch on a few of these, we'll be bringing the business continuity plan forward very shortly, but we did do some work on that immediately prior to the lockdown. So we've actually done some work, and we'll build on that when we bring that forward at a future meeting. If 2.1.3, the extension of the pensions admin software, this is one where we reached a point where we weren't comfortable going through a procurement process with the time we had left. Partially due to the pandemic, but equally due to a realization of the lead time we would require if we were to move supplier. And so what we've done is, with your agreement at the last committee, we have now extended that contract and brought our hosting contract for the server where the pensions admin platform sits, and the iConnect software, which is the feed into our system from employers. We brought all of those coterminous as well. So that means we can do a extremely robust procurement process in probably the year and a half leading up to the end of that contract, because that's how long we now believe that will take. The Gmp rectification, there were clearly, as we've been quite upfront with you, the delays with HMRC. ITM are now doing some work on that. So we've got the data. It's with ITM, and they are doing some work. But that clearly has slipped from original timelines. Digital strategy review is on track. You'll see a feed into our communication. We brought that already to you. You'll see that feeding into our communication strategy at this meeting, and Corey will touch on that later.
How does this item here go into with the outages that we've just had? I mean, will this service also be affected by any future outages that may happen?
Sorry, so when you talk about the outages were, so the corporate network was extremely shaky for a couple of days. And then immediately thereafter, and completely unrelated, the hosted server for our software platform went down for pretty much a day. So we were broadly sort of out of action for getting on for 3 days, actually. That is the digital strategy is more about the way we interact with our customers, but obviously primarily the members, the way they access their information. But Corey will go through that. So that really, yes, if something there did sit on a network that was impacted, that would be clearly, related. But generally speaking, I think, the members don't need our corporate network in order to access their member self-service, for example.
So the issue is more on our corporate network rather than our actual pension servers.
The longest one was by far, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's now, if not completely resolved, it's certainly been operational after those couple of days, pretty much fully. 2.3.2 is multiple investment strategies. We will be, I think, probably in December, bringing up effectively some further detail around this. There has been work going on with Hymans. So just a reminder, this is where we're looking at whether it's appropriate to put in place different types of investment strategy for different buckets of scheme employer. So whether they're all best on the, if you like, the general fund strategy. So we've been working through that with our advisors, and we'll be bringing some work to the committee around that once, once we've completely assembled our thoughts on what we've been discussing with the Scheme Act, or the Fund Act, should I say. That may well be also to greenlight some further activity, which would incur some costs in order to progress it. So that will be at the next committee.
Okay,
the area where I think where, if anything, has not moved in the way I would like it to, it's 2.4.1 in particular, and this is eating into sort of the unprocessed levers that have primarily built up because we get this lumpy flow of information in from our scheme employers. As you'll see, in fact it's not we've not eaten into that backlog for a number of reasons, really. I'd say that the two main reasons are, one, our Aon, who are obviously supporting us on that, were not able to start their work until later due to the pandemic, and we completely understand that. That's just a fact. They couldn't get the backlog activity up and running as early as they thought they could, and we're having our own local issues as a result of the pandemic, so we do understand that position. The other thing is, I think we now realise that to a certain extent it is less efficient working from home. You don't have the same equipment you have in the office. No matter what you can supply to them, you may have some people with suboptimal, a working environment in terms of where they're sitting, whether it's, sort of in a dedicated office like I'm lucky to have here, or that's fine. But if you're on the kitchen table and working, then that can be quite difficult. The distractions, the childcare issues, all of that does have a small impact, which means that we have been able to keep on top of our business as usual in this area, but we haven't been able to eat into those backlogs. So I think at the next meeting, I think it probably will be turning this to a red in terms of where we are. And if we can get through this year without, increasing our volumes in this area, then I think we'll be doing quite well. That's just an honest appraisal of the situation, and that's been evolving over the last few months. I will pause there because obviously you may have comments on that.
Okay, Matt. No, I think I'm happy with that. Does any members have any questions or queries they'd like to raise? No.
The other one, which is casework related, is 2.4.2. And this isn't. This is slightly different in that it's not really a backlog that's sitting there that we need to clear. What this is we're trying to go out to members who haven't claimed a refund primarily, and invite them to claim a refund or decide what they want to do with their pension rights. We've got a lot sitting there where, sort of almost like in that limbo state where they haven't taken the refund. Sometimes they haven't even contacted us. So we're just trying to go out to these thousands of cases to see what they want to do with their benefits. And obviously if they take them, obviously it will remove a record from our system. The member will have access to the refund they've got, or they're entitled to, should I say. And that, I guess that's best all round. Because whilst they sit there unprocessed, it's kind of like something that we have to take account of at things like the valuation. It's something incidentally which we got a report back from the regulator over the sheer volume of cases that are in this category, and they were sort of like flagging them as being a bit of an issue, and bundling them in with the unprocessed leaves as well, should I say. So that's a distraction as well. So it's an area we want to move forward. Are there any questions on that one?
No, I don't. Does any members have a? No. No. Carry on, Matt, please.
Okay, and then just moving on to the investments area. This is where we've actually done really well in moving these forwards. We have been dealing with our strategic allocation, as you're aware. The development of the asset pool has continued. It has been clearly impacted, but in a controlled way by the pandemic. Our biggest issue, and we'll touch on, I think, because obviously this generally is discussed in private. When Paul goes through the asset pool report, he can pick up on what's precisely going on there. But clearly, some of the sub-funds haven't come online as early as we possibly would like. Some of that's to do with the pandemic, some of it isn't, but we will touch on that later. I'll skip the responsible investment piece, just we'll touch on that in a second. There's a global custody procurement ongoing. So the pool is helping put in place the framework at the national frameworks and colleagues here are involved in that for us to be able to call off at and then the plan is that as access, we will call off that framework for a single custody provider for the whole of, all of the access funds. You can see there that our contract is due to expire, and we're timing that so we can either re-procure the existing provider or procure a new provider at the appropriate moment. That's the last of the demos, apart from RI, and I think it's just about 10 o'clock.
Just over, yes. So, Raj, can you allow the two speakers into the room, please?
I'll admit them now.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning. How are you?
Hello to Chair and councillors. Can I be heard okay?
I can hear you, Mr. Johnson, quite clear. Is Kate Scott there, Miss Scott there?
Yeah, she just joined. Good morning. Hello, Miss Scott, can you hear us?
I think it's a bit faint, Raj, is she?
Yeah, you're a bit faint, sorry. Miss Scott, we can't quite hear you. You're a bit faint. Is there a microphone or something perhaps you could use?
Can we suggest she goes out and comes back, Raj?
Yeah, if you'd like to leave the meeting and then I'll add you back in, that might work. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Johnson, if you just bear with us. Technology is wonderful when it works properly, but it's...
Yes, I think we're all kind of used to this and the seance effect of being on Zoom.
Yes. I think actually, I don't think it's just restricted to Zoom for this week. I think there's most of these platforms have been having issues, haven't they, this week?
Okay. I know my my visual's kind of bright, but I think I've got a very big window in front of me, so
Yes,
I apologise for the shine.
No, it's fine. We can see and we can hear you fine, so that's good.
Cool.
Hello, is that any better now? No, you're still quite faint. Is there perhaps another device or something nearby you could maybe use?
Maybe telephone in?
Yeah, I was going to say, can we not do a phone in, Raj?
Yeah, a phone in would work. I believe I've sent you the phone details.
Actually, Raj, if she sits further backwards, that worked a bit then. Is she too close to the microphone?
Chairman, can I suggest the chat function as well?
That's yes.
That's yeah, perfect.
Just about.
A little bit clearer, but it's still a bit faint. I can send you the phone in details now as well, just in case you want to.
Would you like to put me out of the meeting and be heard?
Miss Scott, I've sent you the phone in details. If you'd like to try calling in, perhaps that might sound a bit clearer. Yeah, I've just sent them now.
I'm impressed to see the multitasking going on here.
Oh my word, yes.
We try to be ultra efficient sometimes. It doesn't always work. Well, I mean, while Raj is trying to sort out the communication link between ourselves and Miss Scott, perhaps Mr. Johnson, you'd like to continue. But I'd like to just say to the committee, it's great that we have our membership paying good attention to what we're doing on their behalf, and we always welcome this interaction between ourselves and our membership, especially when they have their own issues and personal issues that they wish to raise with the committee for our considerations, and more important for our information, that they are very much akin to local going on and global going on within the world. So with that, Mr. Johnson, thank you very much for writing into us and taking your time to come and present your statement to the committee. So I'll hand you over to Mark, and then Mark might give you some sort of like ideas on what the procedure is going to be. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Chairman. So yeah, obviously you've referenced the business plan and the activity in the business plan around responsible investment. And so what I propose is that if yourself, and then you've raised a question in that area.
Join the meeting.
Sorry. So Kate's just joined as well. And then if Kate asks her question, which is in a similar area, and then what I'll do is just go read out a statement, but then go through what we are doing in this area in terms of the business plan activities and related matters. So over to you really to go through what you want to say.
I believe I have 3 minutes. Is that correct? Hello, can you hear me okay?
We can, yes.
I believe I've got 3 minutes. Is that correct?
Well, to be quite honest with you, as long as you don't go over too much time, then you're free to speak.
That's very kind. Thank you very much. Okay, so hello again to Chair and the councillors. I'd like to present the case for ethical pensions investments. In April 2020, the UK Supreme Court ruled that ethical considerations are a valid and legal criteria to decide on pensions investments. This gives a free hand to Northants Lgps administrators to make the best decisions for stakeholders and for wider society in securing stable investments which are not subject to scandal and sudden value loss. Ethical investments are shown to perform as well as and better than non-ethical investments, so much so that many will choose them purely for the higher return. Non-ethical investments, on the other hand, can suffer unexpected downturns as the human consequences become highlighted in high-profile events, or as a result of raised awareness and ongoing education of the general public. Bad publicity attached to unethical investments increases the need for public relations costs and increases councillors' workload, typically at inconvenient times, whether they be holidays or during other time pressures. A crisis, as we know, never breaks at a time of our choosing. Of course, no potential investment is perfect, but the choices you make on pensions investments can eliminate the worst firms and organisations from the portfolio. As upstanding members of society, I'm sure you understand fully the value of rule of law, and where those laws are broken at an international level, you disdain being associated to those acts. Moreover, as people with families and an eye to the future, I'm sure you'll want to leave a legacy of calm and safety to future generations, and you can show this through the organisations you help to finance. Your ethical policy may and should look to various issues: environmental, sustainability, health, and avoidance of violence. I specifically asked that you look to the Middle East and the 70-year ongoing military occupation of Palestine, Gaza, the West Bank, and associated territories. Britain, as you may well know, is especially culpable for many of the developments there since 1918, when it formally took control of the area. Israeli military forces operate an illegal and brutal occupation in which children are tried under military courts, are subject to daily harassment and violence by official forces and by settlers. Family homes are invaded in the dark of night for the arrest of children and infants, who then are brutalized and tortured in a systematic effort to terrorize and subdue the occupied population by the state. Civilians are tracked en masse, corralled, beaten, and routinely murdered by soldiers who have effective immunity from punishment. And collective punishment is routine, with house demolitions, school demolitions, and medical facilities, including those for controlling COVID-19, being arbitrarily destroyed. So with all this in mind, I ask for you to look at your investment portfolio. Look at how these investments support illegal activities and firms who are conducting those illegal activities, and change those investments. And I'll happily forward further information on request. And that's my address.
Thank you much, Mr. Johnson. Very thought-provoking and informative. I'm pretty sure that I could speak on behalf of the committee, and thank you for taking the time to put this statement to us today. I'll hand you back over to Mark. We do have an ESG protocol within the fund, but I'll let Mark explain that a little bit further to you. Mark, would you like to listen to Miss Scott first before your reply?
Yes, please. That was the intention, if I may.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, sorry, Miss Scott, can you hear us now? Raj, is Miss Scott still with us?
I think.
I've got this 2 ways and I'm not sure how it's working.
Yeah, I think she needs to unmute the telephone because the telephone is currently muted, but the video camera is
active.
Yeah. Raj, you're muted as well.
Sorry about that. The telephone is still muted. If you could unmute your phone, I think we'll be able to hear what you're saying.
Do you need to tell her how to unmute the phone?
Have you called in successfully? I think that's your number there that's currently on the screen as the call-in. If you could unmute your phone, I think your phone is muted.
Are you hearing me on the phone?
I don't think so.
No, you're
Not,
muted.
not on the phone, Kate. If you can unmute your telephone, and you'll need to do that on the telephone handset.
I don't actually have an unmute on the telephone.
Oh, you're not the called-in number? Okay, right. I think that might be Sophia Nati.
No, I think it's Kate is on that muted number. I muted it because we were getting feedback.
Right. So if you mute the Kate's computer and unmute the telephone, that may work.
I can't.
Oh,
I haven't.
I'm trying to unmute now, but it's saying just ask to unmute. It's not allowing me to fully unmute her. If not, Kate, is it possible for you?
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Are you hearing me through the phone now?
We have, but we can hear an alarm of sorts.
You've got to switch the computer.
Raj, can we? Oh, that's better. Can we? If Kate leaves the meeting on the video and then just is on the phone, would that work?
I think the problem with the feedback is that you're currently in the meeting on your laptop and calling in. So if I place you in the waiting room,
You've got to come off the computer.
if I place you in the waiting room, I'll place you in the waiting room now, and you should be able to unmute your telephone handset, and then we'll be able to hear you without the feedback, I think. Yeah, so I'll place you into the meeting waiting room now, and then if you unmute your telephone handset, you should be able to talk, and we'll be able to hear you without the feedback. So I'll place you into the waiting room, and then if you could unmute your handset as well, please.
I'm sorry that it's taking all this time.
No, this is fine. If you could please unmute it now, and then I'll place you in the waiting room. Okay, so yep, she's in the waiting room. So if she unmutes now, it should work really.
Shouldn't the phone be in the waiting room rather than the video?
We're going to hear her through the phone. I think that was a bit clearer, but I think the feedback was coming from her on the laptop and the phone, the interference.
I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Perfect. Brilliant. We can hear you now.
You can hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Because I haven't got the video, but can you confirm you're hearing me?
Yeah, we can confirm that we hear you perfectly now. Thank you.
That's great then. So if it's okay, I will read my statement with some questions similar to Kevin's at the end.
It will be, Ms. Scott. So what we'll do is, if you'd like to read out your statement to the committee, and then afterwards, Mark Whitby will reply to both your two statements, yours and Mr. Johnson's statements together, if that's okay with yourself. So
yeah, that's absolutely fine, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much. As I say, I'm very sorry about the hitch.
No, it's okay. We're just grateful that, like I said, our members are interested, that much interested in what we're doing on their behalf. So please carry on.
I'm not actually a member of your scheme. I hope I'm speaking on behalf of members, because I have colleagues within Palestine's Solidarity Campaign, Northamptonshire, who I know are members and may have written to you. And I'm also a supporter of human rights and equality in all areas. From information which you supplied earlier this year to PSC, we heard that your scheme has investments in a number of companies which are complicit in Israel's violations of the human rights and liberty of Palestinians, and that these investments total almost £77 million. Israel's oppression of Palestinians includes the restriction of the right of free movement and travel, collective punishment in the form of home demolitions, maintaining the land, sea and air siege of Gaza and regular bombardment, the use of military force to suppress peaceful demonstrations. And these measures are used against civilians, including children. Israel's settlements in the occupied territories are illegal under international law, and companies which trade with settlements are therefore guilty of war crimes. Among the investments of NCC pension scheme are investments in BAE Systems, the world's fourth largest arms company, which supplies the Protector naval drone, which Israel uses to maintain the siege on Gaza. BAE Systems also supplies arms to Saudi Arabia, which are used in the Yemen with civilian casualties. General Electric, a very innocuous sounding name, General Electric supplies the engines for the Apache helicopters and the F-16 jets, which are used in assaults on Gaza with civilian casualties. Cisco Systems supplies surveillance technology to checkpoints in the occupied territories, thereby restricting the movement of Palestinians. Samsung, another name well known for technologies, supplies telecom services and mobile phones to illegal settlers in the West Bank who harass Palestinians and destroy their crops, and to Israeli soldiers in the West Bank to provide protection to the settlers. Then there are the banks. HSBC and Barclays have investments in companies which contribute to Israel's military oppression. HSBC more than £800 million, Barclays 1.2 billion. These banks have their own ethical investment policies and are amenable to dialogue from their own investors and others. As a result of engagement with Palestine Solidarity Campaign, HSBC has disinvested from Elbit, the Israeli arms company. Efforts are being made to persuade HSBC to disinvest from Caterpillar, which supplies Israel with the bulldozers which are used to demolish the homes of Palestinians. I realise that your first responsibility to your stakeholders is commercial, to ensure that their money grows and that there is a decent pension at the end of it. But social responsibility is also important, and the two aspects do not need to be exclusive. My request to your committee, therefore, is that you put in place a statement of investment principles to ensure social and moral responsibility, that you carry out a comprehensive review of your investments to ascertain whether or not they meet these criteria, and where practicable, you seek to engage with those companies which do not meet these criteria to urge that they change their own investments. That's my statement. Thank you.
I think we may have lost sound from the chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Scott. I think Councillor Eakins has currently lost his sound. So, Mark, if you would like to respond,
Okay, thank you. So, as I said, what I'll do is I'll read out, if you like, a statement around which really is based around our current policy, and then I'll go on to really what you've probably both spotted within our business plan in terms of the responsible investment activity and what the various strands of that are, and it will probably touch on a number of things that have just been discussed. So first, if you like, the statement. So the pension fund strongly believes in responsible investment, which probably we would say that as opposed to ethical purely, reflecting an overriding fiduciary and public law duty to act in the best long-term interest of its stakeholders, including the members and employers, to achieve the best financial return with an appropriate level of risk. So the fund does recognise the importance of our environmental, social and governance factors can impact on the financial performance, and we require all investment managers to take these factors into consideration in the selection, retention and realisation of investments. And that's not just in the listed space, that's included in our alternatives, private equity and things like that. But clearly the majority of our assets are enlisted. The fund does not seek to impose particular views by restricting an investment manager's stock selection by reference to these factors, except where restrictions have been put in place by government. Instead, the fund believes in long-term investing with active engagement with company management to promote good corporate governance principles to protect and enhance shareholder value. So, what that is basically saying is that for every one of those managers, we expect them to engage with companies, and they would feed back to us on that, and we would spend a good part of every meeting we have with them going through that aspect. We have our current responsible investment policy is on the governance pages of our website. So that's there for all to see at the moment. But as I said, we're doing quite a bit of work on this at the moment, as is set out in our business plan. And I'll probably just go through, if you like, 3 strands, which may not be fully appreciated from what is in that plan. So the first thing, which is certainly detailed, is we're going through a investment belief survey that we've done with the committee members after considerable training on that area. And what that is ending up in is a set of investment beliefs which will feed into a responsible investment policy. And that policy, which is, as you'll see from the business plan, is actually in the process of being drafted, will then be publicly consulted on in our investment strategy. So the responsible investment policy, to be clear, forms a part of the our overall investment strategy, and every time we make any material changes to it, we have to go out to public consultation, and that's certainly what we will be doing later this year with this. And so we will obviously flag that is being consulted there for consultation to all of our scheme members and other stakeholders. If I turn secondly to sort of local activity, and by that I mean activity within the pension fund itself, we're doing a raft of things actually. I guess 2 I would draw out are a desire to sign up to the new stewardship code, which obviously is about the stewardship of the assets, how we engage with either the managers or the managers engage with the companies themselves. The stage we're at there is we're going to be looking at a gap analysis as to what we need the steps we need to take in order to be able to sign up to that stewardship code in its new form. We made a commitment to do so when the old stewardship code was in place, but the changes were quite significant in terms of between the old and the new stewardship code, which meant we're going to have to go through a further stage to be able to do that. And the other local area I'd draw out is around climate-related financial disclosures. And so obviously we're looking at as to what we need to put in place in order to be able to deal not only with what the requirements really are at the moment, but what are coming online as well. But that last aspect is particularly related to the third point I want to make, which is around pool-related activity. So a lot of our assets are now held in the Access asset pool. So all local government funds are pooling assets with others to get sort of economies of scale, better governance, improve returns. And there is some activity going on there, it's fair to say. I will be discussing it with the members in a private session later, but in terms of what I can say now, it's certainly around pool level responsible investment policies and reporting. And it's fair to say that as a fund within the Access pool, we would expect a lot of the reporting in this area to come from the pool and be provided to us, and the pool should deliver what we require as a fund. So around sort of climate related disclosures, levels of fossil fuels, carbon footprint, all of those kind of things we would expect to get from that pool level reporting. And if there's anything held locally that isn't covered, we would obviously have to put that in place ourselves. So that really is the statement followed by, if you like, the activity that we're undertaking at a local level.
Well, I don't know if you're still there. Sorry, I did lose my my input sound slightly then. I had to just reboot my speakers. But thank you very much, Mr. Johnson and Ms. Scott. I'd like to thank you both for taking the time out of your lives to write into the committee. And I do hope that.
Hand up currently.
Sorry.
Sorry, Chair. Mr. Johnston currently has his hand up.
All right. Sorry. Oh, sorry. I wasn't looking for that, Mr. Johnson. Sorry. By all means, you can have a comment.
Thank you very much. Just be quick. I've got just two short questions for Mark, if that's okay. He spoke about responsible versus ethical investment being the general policy. I'll be interested on what the difference is between those, and also in terms of the pooled investment, would it be something that could be done whereby these views would be represented through to those pooled investment bodies, so that the points that we raise here could be taken on to them?
Okay. Yeah, so ethical versus responsible investment, or indeed sustainable responsible investment. I think the way I would look at it would be that ethical would be investing purely for ethical reasons, with with disregard for financial gain, whereas responsible would be for would encompass a lot of what you would describe as ethical measures. So yeah, responsible investment is taking account of environmental, social, and governance factors in decision making. So I think we're talking along very similar themes, but we would draw a distinction in terms of what ethical investment is.
Thank you.
And yeah, sorry, your second question was around taking forward this to the pool.
Yes, that's right. If they are actually directing the investments which you have a stake in, then hopefully the points raised can go forward to those who make those investment decisions.
Yes, of course, and indeed, I'm on a task and finish group at a pool level. So that yeah, I mean, anything we're doing in the local space would need to be reflected at a pool level in terms of raising an awareness. But certainly, as you would imagine, funds across the whole of the country, let alone in the local area, are getting similar requests, similar pressure in terms of this. So it has been discussed at the pool level already.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I mean, as well as there is a slight difference between ethical and, as you're saying, responsible, but in a way they are both linked.
Yes.
When you look at the ethical thing is your morals and then how your principles are to it, as well as when responsible is that you're also accountable and your trustworthiness. So they are both interlinked, and I think with the committees, with your pension funds committees, is we're very much aware of all those responsibilities that we have, which are coming under the governance of the fund. And like I said, I think I have replied to Paul Crofts today, and saying that we have our mind now on ESG. It's firmly up there in front of all our decision making processes. So I'd like to think that you could be rest assured is that we're onto it, but it is obviously, you can say, it is a bit of a difficult field for us to go through every single investment that we're doing, and how far do you drill down without costing us time and effort and money. So but thank you very much for your input. It's very much appreciated. I'm pretty sure that our committee would like to hear from you again, and any of your colleagues with likewise concerns and issues that you have. So thank you both very much for coming to join us this morning.
And thank you very much for giving us a good hearing, and for I think a very sympathetic response, which gives me confidence that things will be moving forward.
Yeah, thank you. I endorse that, and thank you for your patience with my sound.
No, thank you very much. I mean, after all, we are here to serve yourselves, so that's our job, to look after and represent your interest in the fund. So thank you very much.
Marvellous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should we leave now?
You're quite welcome to log back in on YouTube and continue to watch the I was just about to say to watch the show then, but sorry, but to watch the committee process working. So, but I think for the live feed, I think Raj will be closing that one for you, but then you're quite welcome to join us on YouTube.
Yeah, the live stream is available on the NTC Democracy YouTube channel, so you can watch it on there.
Nice to meet you all.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. So, Mark, is there anything else you'd like to add to your report?
No, I think that's probably it covered off now. Thank you.
Okay, then. So, thank you very much, committee members, for the patience that we've just done, and it was a bit of a thing, but it's a good thing. It's something else that we can do now, and it's good to have the involvement of our membership as well. So, I'd like to invite the committee to note the update from Mark, and also the statements and comments made by our two speakers today.
Noted.
Noted.
Thank you all very much. So moving on to item 9.
Chairman, I think Joe did suggest a 5-minute break.
All right, that's probably when I was on silent, was it?
Yeah.
Yes, that's fine. I mean, if everyone's happy to have a quick 5-minute break, then that's fine by me. I mean, the feed will be left open, so if you want to put yourselves on mute, then please do. And then we'll reconvene, say 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Jonathan,
yes.
sorry, I'm going to give you a call, if that's okay.
Yes, no worries. I think Malcolm Waters will be leaving us soon as well, because I think he's got a hospital appointment. So we may lose Malcolm, but it won't be a technical itch.
Okay.
I'll go on to mute, Joe.
Thank you.
We started coming back. Are we still live, Raj?
Yeah, we are.
Okay. So are we all back again, or are we waiting for somebody else?
We're waiting for a few of the members, just at the bottom. I think they're starting to come back though.
Give it another minute or so.
Yeah.
Have you paused the YouTube feed?
No, the YouTube feed is still running now. If I stop it, it will come up as 2 different separate videos. So I'll leave it running now until agenda item 16. Then I'll stop it for the private session.
I see. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Raj. Modern technology, eh? Are we all back? Hello?
Yes, I'm back.
I'm back.
Okay.
Yes, all present.
Thank you. So before we move on to item 9, can I just remind all members that we are streaming live to the public. So normal online meeting protocols are in place and must be observed. Thank you. So item 9, the governance and compliance report. And I'd like to invite Joe Walton to introduce his report to us. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Okay, this is quite a detailed and in-depth report this time, and there's a section 4, which I would like to go through at the end whilst I've gone through everything else in the report. Is that okay? Because I've got some slides to share on that.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Okay, so if I start off the report in order, section 2, good governance review. As you remember, I did a presentation on this at the 6th of March 2020 Information Day at Why Boston Lakes. And this is the Scheme Advisory Board's review of good governance in the Lgps. That work has been ongoing during the pandemic, but at a much slower rate. But work is still ongoing. We hoped to have, by the end of September, a further report setting out some of the implementation proposals, a sample version of what a fund's new governance compliance statement should look like, and a sample independent governance review report. These will all be key features of the new governance arrangements should those proposals go ahead. It's now the 16th of October, but we haven't had those come through yet, but I'm assured that work is still underway on that, and once that's made available to us, we'll share it with the committee. Section 3 is the legislation update of the report. Goodwin versus the Department of Education is a case regarding the last piece of sexual discrimination within survivor benefits in the Lgps. You may remember from the Walker versus Innispec case, they left opposite sex marriages, widowers of opposite sex marriages were still left with a bit of discrimination against them in terms of not receiving the same amount of benefits as same-sex marriages. That has now been addressed, and scheme regulations will change to make sure that that category of membership are not penalised further with that one. This is a result of the Goodwin case, which is actually featured in the teachers' pension scheme. What we'll have to do when those regulations come in is to look back at everybody who was affected by this right back to the 5th of December 2005, and uprate their benefits should that be required. So that's a piece of work that will come in at some time soon.
That's quite good, actually. I didn't realise until recently that if you're cohabiting, is that your partner will only be in receipt of a part pension if you pass away, not as a widow's pension or widower's pension.
That's not quite the case, but yes. So that's company partners' pensions have been a feature of the scheme since within the scheme.
Good.
Then we have the Lgps amendment regulations, and this is more Corey's area of speciality. This is regards to giving employers more flexibility around employers that leave the scheme or suffering difficulties with their contributions. So here we have an ability to have intervaluation reviews of employer contributions, where previously that could only be done every 3 years in line with evaluation. We can spread of the exit debt as well, so it doesn't have to be paid in one instalment, and deferred debt arrangements. I believe Corey's going to talk more in detail about these during his section. Is that correct, Corey? Corey's nodding, I think. Yep, he is. So the next, number 4, I'm going to leave till the end. Sorry, 4.2 also. 4.3 is McLeod. As you'll have seen from the report pack, I've got a whole report on that as the next item, so I'll cover that off there. But as you'll be aware, you've been sent a copy of the consultation response that we produced for that a few days ago, on the 8th of October, that was sent to you on the closing date. Section 5 of this report is the Lgps National Knowledge Assessment, which was carried out by Hymans Robertson as an exercise to review the knowledge of pension committee and local pension board members across the country. You might wonder why you weren't involved in this. That's because our team didn't participate. It wasn't a free service, so we didn't participate in that. But from the 20 administering authorities that did participate, there were 225 members that did within those 20 schemes. And their knowledge was assessed on the areas of the SIP for Skills and Knowledge framework. And as you'll see from the table in 5.2, the trend was for the most knowledgeable area to be that of financial markets and product knowledge, which may not come as too much of a surprise. The lowest areas of knowledge were pensions administration and actuarial methods, standards and practices. Maybe because on the actuarial one, that's normally been an issue once every 3 years, and pensions admin, very complex area that you're not really asked to make decisions on a daily basis, but still things that you absolutely need to be aware of. With regards to our own knowledge policy, we're in the process of revising this, particularly in line for unitary, when we may have more committee members or different committee members, so we need to get our knowledge up to speed on that. So that will follow shortly. Just finishing before I go to the difficult part of the report, section is in the knowledge and skills training opportunities, which I can't find in my pack. There aren't that many things going on at the moment, and what is going on is virtual events, as you can appreciate. So on page 83 of the report pack, there's some events there that have been listed. And in the meantime, if things do come up at short notice, we will email them around to committee members to see if they have any interest in attending. But we are seeing that the large theme is that everything is being presented virtually, which may or may not be, well, I've certainly found for myself it's a much more convenient way of acquiring knowledge. So that's all good. We do have our own LGSS Pensions Information Day on the 10th of February, although perhaps we won't be calling it LGSS by then. So that will be something that we'll be writing to you about in short order to let you know what the content of that day will be. Any questions on any of that before I go to the exit cap section?
Open it up to the committee. Do you have any queries or questions?
Just accuracy, I presume that's 10th of Feb 21. Sorry, on the dates there.
Oh, does it say 2020? Yes, you're quite right, 21.
It might be so easy if we go backwards sometimes, then we know what we're doing. We can preempt things, can't we? The privilege of having a what's the name, ball, crystal ball.
So no further questions. So everyone have...
Carry on, Joe.
Okay, so this is where I'm going to share my screen, so bear with me one moment. Okay. All right, can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Yep, everyone good?
Yep.
Right. Okay, right. So instead of going through section 4 of the report, I will go through these presentation slides, which bring it all, because this is a fast moving item, things changing by the day. So I've summed it up in this presentation. So I shall start there if that's okay with everyone. Okay, so a bit of background to where we are. In 2015, the government announced plans to cap exit payments in the public sector. So to the tune of £95,000 was the amount somebody could leave on the grounds of redundancy. And that would be their package based on pension strain and redundancy payment. Just to explain what pension strain is, that is the cost of letting somebody retire early on the grounds of redundancy, but without them suffering a reduction to their benefits for retiring early, sorry. So that 95k, obviously that's a nice little number under 100,000, because obviously how people feel about public sector and their six-figure payouts is why that's been set at 95,000. But that was suggested back in 2015. Nothing moved on that until 2019, when Treasury issued a consultation on draft regulations. All went quiet again until July 2020, when HM Treasury published their response to the consultation. I'm just going to hide my screen a bit there. And yeah, so sorry, in July 2020, HM Treasury published their response to the consultation, and regulations have now since been published, and updated guidance and directions are still to follow. So what we do know now, as of yesterday, that the 95k cap for public sector will be enforced from the 4th of November 2020. So that's in, I believe, 20 days' time, which isn't an awful lot of notice. So the cap, the 95k cap, is not index linked, so that will never increase. The cap includes statutory redundancy, severance payments, the pension strain, as I've mentioned, and other payments made as a consequence of termination of employment. There are some relaxations and waivers available, and the process for that goes through full council and then on to the relevant minister for approval. It's not expected that relaxations and waivers will be used that frequently.
So, Joe, can we just ask what the relaxation and waivers, does that mean that the actual cap can be increased from 95k?
Or ignored, I think, is more the essence of it. So I think it may surrender people who have agreed a redundancy package a long time ago,
right?
Who suddenly are now affected by this 4th of November date that previously wouldn't have been. And the interesting thing is, it may, and I'm not an expert on this, and it's not really for me as a pensions person to say, but in terms of local government reorganisation, that may have an impact there, and that may be one of the reasons where a relaxation and a waiver may be available. But this is my view of the regulations, and it's not me speaking authoritatively on behalf of North Hampshire County Council or anything like that. So I should stress that this is the pensions interpretation of the regulations. Also, HR and the employers within the scheme need to have their own understanding of this as well. This is not necessarily being led by pensions at all.
Well, I do understand from speaking to some members a while back that they had a different agreement for their pensions, or paying into their pensions and then pensions receivable, when they transferred from one council to the next. I think on our side of it, it was when they went from, I mean, Malcolm Waters might know a bit more than this because it's pre my time, but when they transferred from the old Borough Council in Wellingborough to the Borough Council of Wellingborough, so I think it was Wellingborough Council, then it went to the Borough of Wellingborough Council or something like that. There was an agreement between certain long-term serving officers then that the pensions and their payments will be protected.
Yes, again, that wouldn't be for us in pensions to comment on, because it's down to the employer to have that knowledge in place and understand what is and isn't included or can be used as a relaxation or a waiver. But yeah, there's certainly certain things with regards to TUPE and local government reorganisation where relaxations and waivers may be available, but like I say, I'm not the expert to comment on that. We'll just deal with what's been told to us. So yeah, that's as far as I can probably comment on that. So in 20 days, we will have to follow these rules where nobody can leave the pension scheme age 55 plus on the grounds of redundancy with more than a 95k package. What we do find is that pension strain can be quite considerable in size, depending on how close somebody is or how far somebody is away from retirement, the value of the amount of service they've got, the size of their salary, pensionable salary. So we do tend to see, we can see pension strain costs being as low as, say, a couple of £100, but also as high as several £100,000. So you can quickly see that the 95k cap is going to have some issues there with people not getting the benefit package that they always thought they might get if they were made redundant at age 55. So that was all fine. But on the 7th of September, MHCLG released their own consultation on reforming local government exit pay in the LGPS. So the next slide details what MHCLG are proposing. So this is alongside the 95k exit cap. So MHCLG would like to, or have proposed, that they will change redundancy packages by limiting redundancy pay to a maximum of 3 weeks pay per year of service, a maximum of 15 months of pay on the amount of redundancy payment paid, a maximum salary of 80,000 to be included in the calculation of the exit of the redundancy pay. So coupled with the 95k cap, members will see, or scheme members will see that the amount of benefits that they're in, or the package that they previously received, is going to be considerably restricted. What we don't know is when these extra bits of reform will come into play for local government employees, and we're largely talking about local authorities at this stage. The regulations will be very specific as to which ones these, which types of employers these changes are covered by. So the impact for members in the LGPS. So currently, if a member of the LGPS is made redundant, age 55 plus, they're entitled to an immediate payment of their LGPS benefits unreduced, no matter the size of the strain cost, be it £1,000 or £300,000. The statutory redundancy payment they're entitled to by the nature of how it sounds, and discretionary compensation as well on top of the redundancy payment, which is decided by the employer, each individual employer within the scheme, based on their limits within the compensation regulations. I just say, add to that, the compensation regulations have also been amended in draft form for us to comment on. That came out yesterday, I believe. So there's lots of things going on all at once here. So new proposals, which by MHCLG provide an element of choice to our LGPS members. Employees aged 55 plus will not be able to receive both an unreduced pension and a redundancy payment, statutory or discretionary. So, and to receive an unreduced pension, the member must make a payment towards the pension strain equal to their statutory redundancy pay, i.e. giving up their statutory redundancy pay. And also, if a pension is being paid immediately and not fully reduced, then the employer may not make payment of a discretionary compensation payment. So it all sounds rather complicated, and it is. I've demonstrated on the next few slides what that actually looks like in terms of pounds and pence. Move forward.
I mean, that does make sense, really, doesn't it? Because if you're being made redundant, your redundancy is compensation for you not being able to work or until you get another job, in theory. And then, so if you retire on a full package, technically you're then receipt of an income, aren't you? So is that possibly the reason why they worked that one out? You have to put your own contribution to it, so the SRP, it's not like a bonus, so to speak.
Yeah, it depends what angle you're coming from and who you are and what position you find yourself in as to how you view these new arrangements. But certainly, what the overall aim of government is to reduce the amount of package, that is financial package, that's given to people when they retire on the grounds of redundancy. So people aren't receiving statutory redundancy pay, discretionary redundancy pay, and an unreduced pension, when that could total several £100,000. So, but again, from an individual perspective, you will probably see it differently depending on your own circumstances.
Sorry, Chair, can I sorry, Brian, can I just give, probably from a member's point of view, I think this is, well, not disastrous is probably a bit over the top, but I think for most members like myself, I'm 55, and through the unitary process, I might be one of those in time that's reorganised and lose their jobs. With 37 years service in, the redundancy package, it's something, you know, I like you mentioned, Borough Council of Wellingborough, this is something that it's been my conditions of my pension for the last, you know, 30 odd years sort of thing. And the redundancy package is a redundancy package, but the point being is that the extra payments aren't to make up my pension in full, they're just to make up what pension I've got at that time. So what pension I've got paid up to 55. So it's not an additional payment. My redundancy about 25,000. You know, that's not going to last me if I don't get a job for the next 10 years. In fact, you know, it's not really even a year's salary for most people. So I think there are different ways of looking at this, and I think most members are extremely disappointed by this. I think the fact it's been brought in so rushed as well, and the fact it's not inflationary linked, as there's a lot of anger amongst scheme members in this. Thank you.
Yes, so obviously that's one of the ways you could interpret this. So I'm going to be trying as much as I can to sit on the fence and not give an opinion on this, so bear with me. So what I've got here on this slide here is an example of a member. And the first thing we look at through this new process is the pension strain. Does that or does it not exceed £95,000? So in these sets of examples, you have somebody who's 56 years old, salary of 57,000, pension strain of 84, statutory redundancy of 9684, and discretionary redundancy, I can't see there's a box over it, is, oh, I've moved up a slide, bear with me, is £19,912. And as you can see, going across the columns on the table, what members would have previously received, where they would get the immediate unreduced pension benefits, would have been a package worth 114,000. And now that's being restricted to the cost of the pension strain, which is 84,765. But within those options, we now have further options in that previously members had to take immediate unreduced pension benefits, but now they can take partially reduced benefits immediately and payment of statutory redundancy pay, but at the expense of the discretionary redundancy pay element. They can take an immediate reduced pension benefits in full, so full reduction of benefits to the age and date they're leaving, but take payment of SRP and discretionary redundancy pay. But they can also defer their pension and receive statutory redundancy pay and discretionary redundancy pay. As you can see from the bottom of the slides, where we've got the future value of package to member and what it was previously at the current value, there's quite some difference between those values, which is really where Andy is coming from.
Joe, can I just ask a question? Is it possible for somebody to take, if they're 55, to take out a redundancy payment, but leave their pensions in and then take it when they're 65 or whatever? Can they do that? And they said they would still get the maximum amount, wouldn't they?
Yep, that's option 4 on this slide. So a deferred pension, not payable from normal pension age or potentially earlier than that with reductions. So that's that package there. But the effect of doing that is reducing your package. You haven't got the benefit of the pension strain. So what would previously have happened, so if this person retired today, they would have got £114,000 worth of redundancy package. But in the future, when the changes to the Lgps come in, that would be worth £29,500. So you can see why scheme members would be upset by that, but not that I'm making a judgment there.
No, there was a raised hand from Joan. I don't know if she still has a question, but yeah, I mean, I think you're right. The difference in scale between taking it deferred and taking it immediate unreduced is huge. 84,000 versus 29,000, and that's obviously because you're not getting it for the pension for paid maybe 10-12 years. So if you defer it, it's you're giving up a lot of what the employer would have funded. So I don't know if Joan still has a question.
Well, it's more of a statement than a question, if that's okay. I mean, I think we have to put this in the context about this is not a proposal for all pensions. This is only a proposal for the LGPS. And the reasons why people go into public service are because they expect actually less salaries than in the private sector, lower salaries than in the private sector with the same skills, on the basis that actually they're committing to a worthwhile job, getting kind of some job satisfaction from this, and also that there is some security in terms of the pension. To do this, I think it needs to be clearly seen for what it is, which is an attack on public sector pensions. And the people that it will have most impact on are the people actually who aren't higher paid, actually, who rely on this.
Yes, I should also stress that the LGPS are the first ones to have a consultation on the further amendments to their scheme with regards to exit cap, but other public sector pension schemes should follow. But yes, there's always going to be a difference between that and the private sector, of course. Again, sort of not getting into the politics of things. So moving on to slide B, again, there's some more examples there of the value of package difference when someone does breach the 95k cap on pension strain alone. As you can see, there's quite some significant difference again on the deferred pension option, some £100,000 difference. And in example number C, we don't expect to see this scenario too often, but where pension strain does not breach do not breach the pension 95k cap, but pension strain is less than discretionary redundancy payment. There's examples of what will happen there. Don't want to focus too much on the examples. A lot of this is still has been interpreted from the GAD guidance, so it is our understanding of it at the current time and how we think it's going to work based on that guidance. But we have heard that the Scheme Advisory Board have put in a challenge, have asked for a QC opinion on how this is actually going to work with the regulations on the exit cap coming in on the 4th of November, and the LGPS one's not quite ready yet. So, and how it, as administering authorities, we're supposed to act on this information.
So, with Advocate, this has been in the pipeline since 2015, hasn't it? 2015.
Yeah, but we all thought it would just be, it wouldn't have the further reforms that MHCLG have come up with. They came out on the 7th of September and have really taken everybody by surprise. And as you can see from the numbers, we didn't really expect it to have so much of an effect. What some of the views are that when we respond to this consultation, which is due on the 9th of November, we perhaps suggest that statutory redundancy pay is kept out of the equation. But we have yet to form a solid opinion on that, but we would obviously welcome the views of the Pensions Committee, and we'll share with you our consultation response before we issue it as a final document to MHCLG.
Bob, you've got your virtual hand up, and Peter Borley-Cox has got his hand up. Do you want to speak, Bob?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think it's a devastating blow if it comes about in that fashion to members. And in terms of Northamptonshire County Council, I think it's quite immoral to impose it. Well, because in Northamptonshire, as we all know, we're moving to 2 unitaries. Staff have no say in that, but it's going to affect them drastically, and it's going to affect their pension rights as well when this comes in. You know, so I think we should be making a strong point about the non-choice that scheme members have in Northamptonshire as a result of the government decision to force us to move to 2 unitaries. You're arguing that that should be an exception in our case. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Peter.
I would agree with statements from Andin and Jonah and Bob, and I'd just say I appreciate, Joe, your neutrality on this, so that's accepted, of course. I would just point out that the examples used in these calculations are reasonably high salaries, and yet a lot of not highly paid people will be affected by this. So we have an example that I'm personally aware of with a member of staff who's on a very significantly lower salary, on an admin grade salary, who would also be affected by this, and has already been consulted with and has already been put at risk of redundancy, and will be set to change by this because of their notice period. But these are administrative grade salaries, not people on £50,000, £60,000, £70,000 per year, but more like £20,000 per year because of their age and length of service that are going to be caught by this. And they are not substantial figures in either their statutory redundancy pay, their discretionary redundancy pay, or indeed their pension. It's the pension strain because of their age at which they are being made redundant through no choice of their own. And so this is a very, very significant blow for current employees and members. And these are not the headline grabbing figures that this legislation was originally, and I personally completely agree with it coming in for those headline grabbing figures where people are being paid off to those levels. And just to remind members of the committee, of course, that the pension strain cost does not go to the member. So they are not receiving these very large figures. That's the cost to the employer from making them redundant at a time of their working career, which is very late in their career, and so can substantially affect their opportunity to go on and obtain further work at that stage. And the only other thing I would say is I thought, Joe, that they'd said originally that the MHCLG were trying to get it to come in at the same time, was one of their original intentions. And obviously, if that's by November, that seems even more unreasonable in terms of being even possible.
Yeah, and that's what the legal question is about that's been raised by Scheme Advisory Board. Even from an administrative point of view, how we are going to deal with this and communicate with scheme members and employers is an issue in itself. So, yeah, it's not helpful that these two are coming separately.
Councillor Micklewhite, Richard.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. On the subject of declarations of interest, I have a standing declaration of interest that I'm a retired member of the pension fund. I think out of an abundance of caution, I should also raise the fact that I went through this redundancy at the age of 55 plus process. So I'd like to put that on record, plus the fact that given that I do have views on this, I think under the circumstances, it would be prudent for me to remain silent on this, and I'm happy to take officer's advice if I need to depart for the duration of this item.
Thank you for that, Richard. And being as it was a declaration of interest that's been previously registered, then you don't have to register it again, unless I believe it's an intrinsic influence or part of a conversation. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm just doing it out of an abundance of caution, Mr. Chairman.
No, that's fine. Absolutely, and it's always to err on the side of caution, as we know. Sorry, Joe, can I come back to you? Hello.
Was it Andy Langford that you were addressing?
Oh, sorry, Andy.
Yeah, sorry. I've had quite a few phone calls about this the last week or so. One thing I don't know is about pension strains and how they're worked out. So people are coming to me saying, how will this affect me? And obviously, I don't know the answer to that. It's great having the examples, thank you. It would be great to have some ones more probably realistic of our members, sort of like you say, the 20, 25, 30,000 people with service in. Is there any way of coming up with some sort of a table of, you know, an approximate how much a pension strain is for somebody on this amount of money with this many years to go, please?
Yeah, I just added a thing I probably should have said as well. Pension strain costs, the calculation method is currently done locally based on the profile of the scheme. Going forward, the Government Actuaries Department will be calculating pension strain. So it's an equivalent cost across the whole country rather than dependent on each scheme. So it doesn't end up being a bit of a postcode lottery as to what the actual value of pension strain is, because you'd have somebody with the same age, service, salary in one scheme having a different pension strain to another person. So that's all been that will all be sorted out in when the LGPS regs are amended. With regards to, I don't know, Corey, do you have any view on that matter with regards to calculation of pension strain, how we can do this as an estimate wise?
If we do it as sorry, Corey, if we do it as an indicative thing, will we not be in danger of some members taking that as written and then get a bit upset if it doesn't turn out that way?
Yeah, we have to be a bit careful because we are the pension fund and the employer is making all these decisions.
Yeah.
So
there is no table that exists out there. I mean, you're right to say that when it comes into operation, it will be based on GAD factors. But as we understand it, the current factors we use are not a million miles away from what the GAD ones are. So our actuary has compared the two, and they are in the ballpark. The table there is no table that exists of that nature. So the only way it could be created would be literally to run through an estimate for every single salary and situation, and that is just, to be honest, that's a bit really impractical at this stage.
But if it's the employer, Mark, wouldn't that be the employer's responsibility to do that rather than the fund?
No. So there are clearly employers' responsibilities that Joe's talked about, but we are the ones who do the calculation of the strain cost on our system. So the employer is going to obviously be responsible for confirming statutory redundancy pay, discretionary redundancy pay, which would feed into, when it's all joined up, it would feed into our calculation as well. But we generate the strain cost from our end. Yeah, so I mean, in either world it would exist. I'm wondering if it's something we could float with the actuary in terms of, if they could produce something at a, in fact, that's something we will take up with them, but I've not seen anything at the moment.
So as a spin-off, then, this is going to actually incur an extra workload for some of our officers.
I think when it comes in full, it may well be that we need to, put an extra body in just purely to deal with this type of work. We are exploring a interim system solution. So our system will not be able to cope with either the 95k cap coming in or the wider local government reforms. So we're going to have to put in a solution between our system and getting the final results out, which we're already in discussion over. So of course our system will be updated in time, but as you can imagine, it takes time for changes to be implemented in a very, very complicated administration system.
So I mean, it's good to see that you've got it all in hand, and especially if we need the extra workload, that's been covered off as well. And that's so. Thanks for all your questions there. Joe, is there anything else that you want to continue with?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, so if we just say for the end of this item, then if we'd like to invite the committee to note the reports. Sorry, is there any more questions or queries that any of the members have? No, so just ask the committee to note the report then, if that's okay.
Yeah, noted.
Noted.
Okay. I've lost where I am now. So is it item 11 now?
Yeah.
10. I think we just talk about all that McLeod stuff. I've just thought, well, I'm sure we haven't skipped a session, but so yours again, Joe. Then on the McLeod remedy and cost cap mechanism.
Thank you, Chairman. So yes, prior to exit cap, this was our biggest problem. Now it feels a bit more manageable than exit cap. So so that's probably a bit of an indication how much exit cap concern is causing us at the very sort of present time. So this report really is to give you an update on where we are with McLeod and the age discrimination remedy in the LGPS, and also the cost cap mechanism as well. So what this report tells us is that we have now responded to the consultation that was released over the summer. You'll have received a copy of that consultation response around about the 8th of October. The the consultation included, it was a technical sort of consultation response, detailing how the proposed remedy would actually work within the LGPS. And the technical part of that is all detailed in section 2 of this report. I don't intend to go through that in any detail because it's probably not the most relevant part of this report, but it's there if you have any questions. What probably is the most interesting part of this report is the potential impact on the Northamptonshire Pension Fund, which is in section 3 of the report. So what we did earlier in the year, which was about June, was we commissioned our Benefits and Governance Advisors, Aon, to have a look at how the pension fund might be impacted by the McLeod remedy, as we thought it would be before the consultation was released. So Aon had a look at our membership and came back with the details that's in page 87 in section 3.2. And the overall headline from this is that we're expecting 90% of scheme membership to be affected some way by the remedy. What that means is we'll have to revisit 13,000 records, if maybe more, maybe less by the time comes, and to see how the proposals and the changes in the regulations would affect them. What we know about the proposals for the remedy is that it's likely not to have a massive financial impact on these scheme members, so they won't be expecting to receive significant windfalls of several £1,000s. It may just be, at most a couple of £100. I'm hypothesising here, I don't actually know for sure, but we don't expect any impact to be big per member. It could be a couple of pounds, it could be several £100s, could be 1,000. But what we do know for sure is that we are going to have to visit these 13,000 scheme members to have a look one way or another. What was also interesting about the profile of the scheme was where which employer most members would be affected by the remedy, and probably went without saying that Northamptonshire County Council, being the biggest employer, would have the most affected members, followed by Northamptonshire Police and then Kettering Borough Council. But then we still have 360 other employers in the scheme, where 8,000 members are likely to be infected within that number. With regards to the work that we can be getting on with now in advance of 2022, when the new regulations are to be effective and underpinned to be applied, is we should be collecting data, part-time hour changes and membership breaks from the scheme employers for all these categories of members who were in the scheme between the 1st of April 2014 up to the 31st of March 2022. As of when the scheme changed on the 1st of April 14, we no longer needed to keep hour changes just because the way the scheme has changed. So we just needed pensionable salary at the end of the financial year. But we as a scheme did collect hour changes, whereas other pension schemes and pension funds across the country stopped doing so. So we're in an advantageous situation where we have got the data, but we didn't police it as though we needed to before 2014. So what we do need to go back and do is check with all our scheme employers that they have provided us with every hour change for every scheme member and every break of service who are members between that period, 2014 to 2022. And that's going to be quite a significant job because some employers no longer exist in the scheme. Some employers won't have kept their data back that far. And obviously we've also got lots of employers to contact as well. So what I've also added to this report is Appendix One, should be in your packs on page 91, which goes through all the things that we think we need to consider and plan for to deal with the remedy when it comes in. So first of all, the governance aspect of it, we will need to establish a project group to oversee all of the activity. It's going to affect lots of areas within our administration service, and we need to be sure that we're all acting accordingly and we're dealing with the project as it should, depending on what guidance is given from MHCLG. We'll obviously have to be regularly reporting to yourselves as the pension committee and also the local pension board. I've already talked about the data collection aspects and the problems that could exist through doing that exercise. Member communication and employer engagement, which is a really important aspect. We certainly know that in other schemes where age discrimination has been an issue, as in the other public sector pension schemes, such as the fire scheme, there's quite some active engagement with regards to members wanting early rectification of their benefits particularly if there has been a claimant in the exercise on the sergeant aspect of this reform. So, but we haven't really had that in the local government pension scheme, but we are certainly worried there could be some aspects where claims companies might see this as an opportunity to recruit scheme members and to sign up for their services to help them be priority in when we come around to the rectification part of it. And there's no need for members to engage with a claims company. We will be doing this without needing members to volunteer, make themselves known to us. We will be addressing it. They needn't spend any money in that process. We are hoping that MHCLG will provide, or the Scheme Advisory Board will provide some guidance as to which categories of memberships we should deal with first. Obviously, because we won't know the individual impacts, we can't say that all deferreds will be affected more than active members. So we will need some guidance on that so that we're doing things across the same way as other funds across the country. Communications to scheme members is really important. And as we've got some issues with regards to how we report the effect of the underpin on annual benefit statements, that could make them more complicated than they already are. So we've got some issues to iron out with regards to that. And again, we're hoping from guidance from the Scheme Advisory Board on that. Administration software is an issue as well. What we wouldn't want to happen is that when we come to doing the rectification of 19% of the scheme, or looking at 19% of the scheme, that we'd have to do it one by one or even manually. We would hope that there would be some bulk facility to look at groups of members in bulk rather than individually. We're not sure that our software providers are ready to do that yet, or whether they would be ready to do that in time. Obviously, if we are looking at members on an individual basis, that will take a lot longer for us to do. And if we had some good system reporting, that will help us get through that more quickly. Also, an area where there will be ongoing administration. We don't just do this rectification piece once. We will have to do it again when it comes to retirement as well for members that haven't already retired. So it's not something that we can deal with in a year and never think about again. It's going to be a constant presence. We've also got some issues around some of the more specialist areas of pensions administration, such as annual allowance, lifetime allowance, pension sharing on divorce, and transfers out, all of which we've covered off in our consultation response to MHCLG on this matter. So that was what was ready to bring you up to speed on where we are, what we're now thinking with regards to the McLeod remedy. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks very much, Joe. Informative as always. Does any of our committee have any queries, questions, or input they'd like to give us or ask Joe? Nope. Done a good job, Joe. Thank you then.
Thank you.
So I'd just like to ask the committee to note Joe's report. Yep.
Noted.
Noted. Thank you very much. Yep. Item 11. Funding strategy statement, Corey. You're the knowledgeable person in this matter. So if you'd like to present us your report.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. You may remember that back at the July committee meeting, I discussed with you a change in the regulations regarding the payment of exit payments or exit credits to employers when they leave the scheme if they have a surplus in their funding. We had some previous legislation in May 2018 that was a rather blunt instrument that just dictated that if there was a surplus in that circumstance, the fund must pay an exit credit to the employer. It gave no qualifications for that and no ability for the fund to take into consideration any risk-sharing arrangements that were in place between the letting authority and the exiting employer. So if the risk had been taken off the table, it didn't give us the flexibility to also send the surplus in the same direction. We've obviously got a case ongoing in that aspect, and as a result of that and other cases that are happening around the scheme, the MHCLG made a further change to the regulations that have introduced discretion to the administrative authority to consider whether or not an exit credit is actually payable, and if it is, the value of that exit credit, taking into account a number of different variables. So the funding strategy statement has been updated to introduce a policy on exit credits, highlighting the process that we'll go through and the considerations that we'll make in making that determination. It's a single section that has been added to the report. So I've not included the report as an appendix, but the section has been included in its entirety for you to read. We've consulted with employers on the changes to the consultation, to the funding strategy statement. No responses were received to that consultation. So the draft is as was written. There are no changes to that. We're asking the committee to approve the changes to the funding strategy statement and also some corresponding changes to the administrative authority's discretion policy, which allows for the decision to be taken by the head of pensions in partnership with the Section 151 officer. So we're looking for that delegated authority as part of this approval. What I'll also say is a heads up that we will be bringing this document back to you yet again, because there are some more regulations that have just been introduced, as Joe mentioned earlier on, around the flexibility of employer contributions and how we manage exit payments that they need to make to us if they're in deficit when they leave the scheme. All of that those regulations do effectively is put on a firm footing some of the approaches that we have taken in the past when we've looked to be pragmatic with employers that can't afford to pay their exit payment. So rather than forcing insolvency, we have in the past entered into some arrangements with them, as other funds do across the scheme. This is common practice across the scheme, but it's putting it on a firm regulatory footing. So you will be voting on it today, but don't be surprised when we bring the document back to you either in December or March for a further approval. I have nothing else to add to the report, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Corey. Does anybody in the committee have any questions or queries or things to put to Corey? No. So what we're asking here to do is I invite the committee to approve. We'll take them on block. There's two approvals required. Invite the committee to approve the amendments to the funding strategy statement, and also then to approve the updating the administrating authority discretionary document to reflect the new policy. Those in favour?
Agreed.
Agreed. Anybody against? No. Thank you very much, Corey. Much appreciated for that one there. The item 12 is also yours. Members, it's 11:30. We're about 45 minutes over, it says. Are you all happy to keep continuing to push it through? You don't need another break or anything? No.
Yeah, no, I'm fine, I think, yeah.
So we'll move on to item 12 then, which again is Corey's report on the communication strategy for 2021.
Yeah, thank you again, Chairman. This is a report that was originally intended to be brought to the committee in March for a decision on the communication strategy ahead for the year, including the communication plan for the year as well. But given the events at the time, we obviously had to restrict some of the items that came onto the agenda for those that were business critical. The strategy has been updated just to bring it up to date, really. So there's some minor changes to do that. And the other major change to the strategy is that we've incorporated the digital communication strategy, which you previously approved at a prior meeting. There's been no changes made to that second strategy. It's just been incorporated into the full one. What I've also included in the report is a summary of some of the activities that we've undertaken on the plan already. As you're seeing this plan later than you normally would, I wanted to give you that assurance that we have been undertaking those activities. And you will see that there's been quite a lot of communication activity in the year so far, particularly around COVID and how members can keep in touch with us, giving them updates on how we're working remotely and to give those assurances. As you can imagine, the current circumstances have accelerated our digital communications. We don't have a soft telephony system available, so it has forced members to have to contact us either via email or their self-service functionality, and we've improved our processes around doing that as well, including sending documents to members electronically as well as by post. Using only if they've opted out of electronic communications do we send it by post. So that has reduced the need for people to go into the office during this time, but is also the change that we wanted to make over a longer term anyway. So it's helped to speed that up in that respect. I don't have anything else to add to the report. The changes are summarised in section 2 of the report itself, so you can see the changes that we've made. I'm happy to answer any questions on those.
Thank you, Corey. Open it up to the committee if they have any questions, queries. I'd like to put to Corey.
Chairman, if I could just add though to what Corey just said about the soft telephony system, that is actually another one of the reasons we've been slightly less efficient. If you're having to respond via email, it is slower clearly than sometimes picking up a phone and speaking to people. But I am very, very hopeful actually that we'll have something in place within fairly short term now, because there've been lots of active discussions in the background.
I mean, the benefit of using emails and stuff like that, there's a permanent record of conversations, isn't there?
Yes, although that can be achieved through a telephone system as well, which is another thing we're exploring.
Okay, so it will be quicker and easier, Mark, I think, wouldn't it? So if the committee's not got any additional questions or queries, then we'll move to invite the committee to approve the communication strategy for 2021.
Approved, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, committee. So moving on to item 13, impact of structural changes within Northamptonshire on the Northamptonshire Pension Fund. And Mark Whitby has the delightful project of introducing this to us.
Thank you, Chairman. I guess the bad news is I have this in my diary till 1 o'clock this afternoon, so I'm not sure we'll go on for that long. But so I'll keep this brief. Yeah. So you may recall I drafted a paper for the March committee that we weren't able to have, but I think it was circulated to all members, which set out where we were at that point in time with regards to this project, and that were characterised that really as it is looking forward at what we were going to do. And what this report that I've introduced in here today is illustrating that there's been quite a lot of movement in terms of decisions made, and we've moved quite a way forward in terms of the unitary changes. So yeah, the biggest highlight quite clearly is that the decision for West Northamptonshire to be the administering authority, there were numerous meetings. We did feed in some very factual data about which of West Northants or North Northants was the largest across a whole host of pension metrics. So West Northamptonshire is the identified administering authority, albeit to be confirmed and ratified by government, it's fair to say. The rationale was because they are the largest employer in the fund, as well as obviously the whole of the pension service, the staff in a lot of the back office will be based in West Northamptonshire. So that's set out quite clearly in section 2.2. The other thing you'll be particularly interested in as a committee is obviously is the pensions committee itself. The timeline for that is set out in section 3, which is that we will be feeding in what we would recommend in terms of, if you like, the structure, scheme of delegation, representation, based on the new setup in terms of 2 very large employers versus the numerous employers we had before. So Joe's going to feed that into a West Northamptonshire Constitution task and finish group in around about November time, so that can be heard in Christmas, around the Christmas period. So that is in progress. So those 2 big things, yes, we've got the administration authority chosen, the pensions committee shape and form is being determined. Obviously, the other thing we will feed into that will be if the opportunity to retain skills and knowledge, if it is there, we should take it. It goes without saying. The last thing we would want as officers is a completely new committee with no skills and knowledge in the pensions world. So rest assured, we will be feeding that into the process as well. The pension service will be in West Northamptonshire, as set out in section 4. I've touched that on already. The other area I just want to mention is communications. So we're not underestimating the huge communication exercise this is going to be. Thousands and thousands of staff within the fund are going to be moving from one employer to another, and everyone technically has an option as to whether they want to amalgamate their benefits together, if they're not leaving at that point, of course. So that's a huge exercise, and it's a huge communications exercise beyond the actual physical work to do those transitions. So we reckon in terms of that, the main communication will be around about February time to give everybody, set out exactly what their position is, and what action they need to take. Thankfully, this has been done before, and we have been in discussion with other funds who have gone through this process. And so I think it's fair to say the last one that did it discussed it with the previous one that did it, and they learned from that, and we're learning from them. So this is an iterative process, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel if it's not necessary. And of course, we are doing it as pragmatically as we can. Yes, I mean, I think there's various other aspects. What I'll do in the interest of time is just open it up to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mark. Committee, do you have any questions or queries that you'd like to put to Mark?
Yes, please, Chair. I'll have a question. Sorry, Mark, it just dawned on me something you just said then about change of employer. So I in my mind, I'd always assumed that sort of staff would just move over. But what you're saying is that, if I took you correct, it'll be almost like I've left the county council and I'm joining a new unitary, and therefore I have 6 months to decide, am I going to defer my pension, or are we into that sort of realm? Have I misunderstood?
You are, yeah. I mean, you're pretty much spot on in terms of the gist of the decision. So when people change employer, they technically we should be keeping the you should be keeping the records separate and giving them 12 months to make a decision to join them together. If you're doing that with thousands and thousands of people, that clearly is incredibly impractical to do. So what you can do alternatively is obviously you can join it together automatically and then give the option to unravel that if they wish to. The truth of the matter is, if you're joining from one job to the next and they're identical on day one, there wouldn't be I'm not going to say there wouldn't be any situations where you wouldn't want to keep it separate, because clearly there could be, and people could want to do that. But generally speaking, it's in the interest to join it together. And so when this exercise has been undertaken previously, it's about the communicating exactly what the position is for the individuals, which is the key.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that it's just opened up a whole sort of
new
area of members calling up saying, "What do I do now?" sort of thing, which is always quite difficult, isn't it? Because it could be if people are moved into unitaries and are redeployed to a lower salary with protection, then I guess there are lots of people that might be asking those questions, aren't there?
Yes, it's I think I guess the biggest concern we would have as the administrative authority would be if the reorganisation programme takes years, a couple of years, let's say, for the last people to be restructures to take place within service areas, for example. That would be our bigger concern. I think if it's within 12 months, it's not particularly an issue at all. But there are ways around to deal with that as well. So all of these issues have been encountered before and dealt with before. The key for us is in advance of those changes, just communicating, and that we wouldn't want to do that really any later than February.
Okay, thank you.
I should add, we will also be joined up in terms of if there are communications which are employer specific. So around things, for example, like auto enrolment, because that's another factor in this. People should be technically auto enrolled. And switching between the full fat scheme and the 50/50 scheme. Those are technically employer issues, but we would want to be communicating as one voice at that point in time.
Okay.
A query, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yeah, sorry.
We've mentioned various things today, different changes in legislation, and the cloud affects 19,000 people. This could affect an unknown number of people. I mean, have you got the resources to take all this extra work on, or are you planning to take extra resources on? Because there are some very large numbers involved here, and could need an extra, quite a large amount of extra time. So, I mean, are you planning for this increase in resources?
Yeah, so the truth is a lot of the activity will take place after 1st of April in terms of, well, certainly McLeod. So McLeod, so this current financial year for McLeod is gathering, is instructing, the employers as to what we require and identifying any, if you like, any gaps. Next year is obviously getting that information and making sure our records are correct, ready for us having to put in place the remedy. So McLeod, a lot of the activity is obviously in the next financial year. Around LGR, a lot of the activity is next year as well, because that's when the physical movements of staff will take place. That's when we'll be having to ramp up probably estimates and some other individual transactions. On the exit cap, I guess we don't know the precise timing, if truth be known, but there clearly is the scope for requiring additional resources there. What I was going to say is the business plan, which we will bring in March, will be where we would ask for any material change in resources. If I need to put an extra person in place immediately, I just do that, to be quite honest with you, and then I report that in the that's then reported through business plan update. So if I just need one extra person because it's clear that's required for either short or longer term, and it results in a difference between our staff costs, what I expected it to be versus actuals, then I just report that to you. Material changes, the time to do that I always think is in the business planning process. But to directly answer, I would imagine we need some increase in resources to deal with this, definitely.
Of course, we won't know what those numbers are. I mean, it's a good thing you brought it up, Richard, but it's one of those things, this is where that crystal ball will come in very helpful to find out where we are going to go and what resources we are going to need going forward, going towards unitary. It's not going to be an easy decision for Mark to make and what his numbers will be and whether he needs to take extra staff on. And given the current climate, I don't know.
Yeah. And but, I think this is incredibly strategic in terms of the changes required. They sort of cut across all areas really. So this is a time where we have to be joined up to deliver these. It's incredibly important period actually. I don't think there's ever been a period where there's been so many changes. McLeod has been, to put it into context, it's been said it's similar to bringing in a new scheme. But we don't just have McLeod, we have reorg and we have exit cap as well. So it's a very difficult period.
Yeah.
It might have COVID Mark III or something, well into next year, being a real optimist.
Yes. Well, thank you for that.
Chairman, could I ask about the pension committee?
Yes, Stephen.
Yeah. The new pension committee, I take it, will be part of West Northamptonshire's projects. Does that mean that North Northamptonshire will not be represented to any meaningful extent on the new committee?
It will be within West Northamptonshire's constitution. So it is West Northamptonshire's responsibility to put it in place. But as we have representation from a variety of, we try to get appropriate representation to based on the scale of employers and the breakdown of different employer types. Thankfully, Joe's going to be the one who's put that in, because I think I'll be honest with you, it's quite difficult to get that representation right. But we are cognizant of the need to get Northamptonshire represented there.
I think I might be speaking out of turn, I might not be, but the intention is Stephen, is not to make too radical a change to the committee in the first instance. It's to continue as it is, subject to obviously electoral issues, people being voted or elected back onto, especially councillors. But other members will quite possibly stay the same until it settles down a little bit. So there will be a little bit of crossover time. And then, because what we must do, and I think what Mark is alluding to, is stability is the key thing here. And what we don't want to do is to change it too drastically where there's a lack of expertise and knowledge on the committee. So there will be a little bit of a bedding in time, shall I dare I say it, or the want of a better word, to ensure the stability going forward in the first instance. And then obviously the changes will have to come sooner or later, but in the first instance, it's governance and stability. That's the key questions or the key points.
Yeah. Could I ask, so sort of in an extreme case then, would Northamptonshire be able to say that they could walk away from the pension fund?
No, sorry. So Northamptonshire. So if West Northamptonshire are the administrative authority, Northamptonshire are a scheme employer in the fund.
Exactly. Yeah.
They don't have a choice to go to a different pension fund, as it were, or set up their own. It's the rationale for. So I think it's taken as a given that there would only be one pension fund, in the sense that whenever this has happened in the past, it's always been one pension fund as a replacement for one pension fund. And equally, the whole direction of travel of government has been to increase the scale as opposed to decrease the scale.
Yes.
So Northamptonshire would be a scheme employer, but I think as a large scheme employer, they would quite rightly expect some form of representation on the committee. And obviously we understand and will feed that in, but I would reiterate, it is West Northamptonshire's decision to put in place the appropriate arrangements. And so whilst we can feed in, and we are professionals and experts and knowledgeable about this area, it is providing that input, and then the decision would flow from that.
Thank you.
Okay, so unless anyone has any more questions for Mark, I'll invite the committee to note this report.
Yeah, noted.
Noted, yeah.
Thank you. So item 14, annual report and statement of accounts, and I'd like to invite Ben Barlow to introduce this report, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, we're bringing the annual report with the statement of accounts, so we're asking the committee for approval, at which point it will then be taken to the audit committee for sign off. It's quite a big document, but I can save you a bit of time straight away. It's only the annual report section that is actually new that you're seeing today. The statement of accounts is unchanged from when I brought it last month. Bit of good news there. The annual report, as well as the statement of accounts, has all been done in accordance with SIT for guidance. So a lot of the wording you'll see in the annual report is sort of stipulated by regulation, and the wording we have to put in place. If I just go through sort of the contents of the annual report and statement of accounts to give you an idea of what is in there on a high level. You've got some scheme administration and management and financial performance. This is reported to you monthly anyway, so there shouldn't really be any surprises in there. In fact, you've got a more up-to-date view brought to you, so this is a picture in time as at the 31st of March. Investment policy and performance, again, that is something that is reported to you monthly at the ISC. So again, you'd have a more up-to-date view, but this is showing that the point in time as at the 31st of March. There's a section on actuarial information that, as suggested, is supplied by the actuary themselves following regulation. And then 6 at the moment, the audit opinion area is blank. I did speak to the auditors yesterday. Unofficially, I can say that it appears to be their audit's going well. The document is clear of material misstatement, and gives a true and fair opinion, which is great news. Hopefully we'll have the ISA 260, which is the accounting report, to bring to you soon. I'm hoping for November really, and it seems like it should be on time. I also say as well, when I'm talking about audit, the auditors only actually audit the statement of accounts. They do a check for consistency with the annual report. So that's the section that you're seeing new today. Yeah, I mean, I know we're running a bit over on time, so with that in mind, I'm happy to open up for questions and comments for annual report or statement of accounts. But like I say, the statement of accounts hasn't changed since it was brought to the last pension committee.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman, can I just make a comment? Because members of the committee, some of them may know that I'm on the audit committee, and as just been said, Ben said that we did it. The report did come, and the only question I was asked was I aware of any fraudulent activity, and I said no, and that really was the end of the conversation. It's a very good report.
Absolutely. And I think what's one of the highlight things there was said about the decrease for the year was only 96.5 million, but I think that's really good, because I think a lot of people were forecasting a worse result than that. So, but yeah, it's all good. So unless anyone has any other questions for Ben, I'd invite the committee to approve the draft annual report, and also then. And there are two different ones there. So to approve the draft annual report in the first instance.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you all.
Agreed.
And then B, to note the statement of accounts of the pension fund for the year 2019-2020 financial years.
Noted.
Noted.
Noted. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for Ben for that.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Item 15. Employers' admission and cessations report. Should be a very short report again. And back to you, Corey, for this, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yes, very short report indeed. I don't have anything to add to the report itself. And just to summarise, there are 6 cessations from the fund in this report. In all cases, it's either an academy merger or it was a pass-through agreement, so the liabilities have passed on to another active employer in the fund, so no exit payments are required from any of these employers. And that's all I've got to say about the report.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So the thing there is literally for the pension committee to note the exit of the following bodies from the North Hampshire Pension Fund. That's St Thomas of Canterbury Catholic Academy Trust, Writer Cleaning Facilities, St Mary's Church of England Primary School, LTS Cleaning Limited, ABM Cleaning Catering Limited, and the 3 separate admissions, and Action for Children. So I'd like to invite the committee to note the exit of those bodies.
Noted.
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 Thank you very much. Thank you. Moving on to item 16, we will be entering into a private session for this next item.